The lecture hall was full of students from 12 different species, and Professor Vrextali stood at the front with all 6 of his arms folded behind his back. His gray skin reflected the blue lights of the holographic display behind him, and his large black eyes moved slowly across the room. He was a Corvani, a species known throughout the galaxy for their dedication to science and their complete lack of humor. "Today we discuss death," the professor said in his dry, clicking voice. "Specifically, we discuss the many ways that plant life across the galaxy can end your existence." A nervous ripple went through the students. Zinth, a young Melvari with soft purple fur and 3 wide eyes, pulled her tablet closer and prepared to take notes. She was only in her 2nd year of studies, and xenobiology still terrified her. The galaxy was full of things that could kill you, and she was learning about all of them. The professor touched a control panel, and a holographic image of a beautiful flower appeared in the air. It had long white petals and a golden center. "The singing bloom of Vareth 7, he announced. "Its pollen causes immediate paralysis in all carbon-based life forms. Death follows within 3 minutes. There is no cure." The students wrote quickly on their tablets. Zinth felt her stomach turn. The professor changed the image. Now they saw a thick green vine covered in small thorns. The strangling vine of the outer rim. It does not wait for you to touch it. It reaches for warm bodies and wraps around them. The thorns inject the digestive fluid that dissolves flesh in approximately 40 seconds. "More writing?" Someone in the back made a small sound of distress. Professor Vrextali continued through his presentation. He showed them mushrooms that released clouds of acid, trees that fired poisonous needles, and flowers that sang songs driving any listener to madness. Each one was more horrible than the last, and each one was rated on his personal scale of danger. "And now," the professor said, his voice dropping lower, "we come to one of the most dangerous plants in the known galaxy. A plant so toxic that even the smallest contact with skin will cause death. A plant that has killed more beings than most weapons of war." He changed the image, and a new plant appeared. It had a green stem, green leaves, and bright red fruit hanging from its branches. "The crimson leaf plant," the professor announced. "Native to a small world in the outer spiral arm. The fruit contains a compound so deadly that a single drop of its juice entering the bloodstream will cause complete respiratory failure within seconds. The nervous system shuts down. The heart stops. There is nothing that can be done." Zinth stared at the red fruit in horror. It looked so innocent, so harmless. How could something so simple be so deadly? "The leaves are also dangerous," the professor continued. "They contain a different toxin that attacks the digestive system. Even touching them with bare skin can cause severe chemical burns in most species. The entire plant is essentially a weapon." A student raised her hand. She was a Drellian with blue scales and a long neck. "Professor, where exactly is this plant found? So we can avoid that region of space?" The professor made a clicking sound that passed for a Corvani sigh. "That is the problem. The plant comes from a world called Earth, and the species that lives there has spread throughout the galaxy, bringing their native flora with them." "Humans?" someone asked. "Yes, humans." The room fell silent. Everyone knew about humans. They were a strange species, soft and small compared to many others. But somehow they had spread across dozens of star systems in just a few centuries. They were everywhere now, working on space stations, serving on ships, building colonies on hostile worlds. Zinth had seen humans on the station. They seemed friendly enough, always smiling and talking too loudly. She had never thought of them as dangerous. "Humans do not seem to understand the threat they carry with them," the professor said. "They transport these crimson leaf plants on their ships. They grow them in their living quarters. They are either ignorant of the danger, or they simply do not care about other species." At that exact moment, movement in the doorway caught Zinth's attention. She turned her head and felt all three of her eyes go wide. A human was walking past the open lecture hall. He was a young male with short brown hair and a relaxed expression on his face. He wore the simple uniform of station kitchen staff, and he was carrying a small container in his hands. He was eating something. Zinth looked more closely and felt her blood turn cold. In the container was a pile of green leaves, and sitting on top of those leaves, cut into small red pieces, was the crimson leaf fruit. The human picked up a piece with a small metal tool and put it directly into his mouth. Zinth tried to scream, but no sound came out. She raised a shaking hand and pointed at the doorway. Other students turned to look. One of them made a choking sound. Another dropped her tablet with a loud crash. Professor Rex Talley spun around to see what had disturbed his class. When he saw the human, his gray skin turned almost white. His 6 arms went rigid at his sides, and his mouth opened and closed several times without making any sound. The human noticed the attention. He stopped walking and looked into the room full of horrified aliens. He smiled in that strange way humans did, showing his teeth, and raised one hand in a casual wave. Then he put another piece of the red fruit into his mouth, chewed twice, and swallowed. Professor Rex Talley's data tablet slipped from his fingers and shattered on the floor. The human looked confused for a moment. He shrugged his shoulders in that odd human gesture and continued walking down the corridor. Still eating from his container of death, the lecture hall erupted into chaos. Zinth sat frozen in her seat, her mind trying to process what she had just witnessed. A human had eaten the most toxic plant known to galactic science. He had put it directly into his body, and he had walked away as if nothing had happened. "Get the medical team," Professor Rex Talley finally managed to say, his voice shaking. "That human has minutes to live, and he does not even know it." The professor ran from the room, his 6 legs carrying him faster than Zinth had ever seen a Corvani move. She jumped up from her seat and followed. She did not want to watch a human die, but she could not look away. The galaxy had just become even more terrifying than she had imagined, and she needed to understand why. Jake Collins had no idea why everyone was suddenly running and screaming behind him. He had just finished his morning shift in the station kitchen, and he was enjoying a simple salad on his walk back to his quarters. The tomatoes were fresh from the station greenhouse. The lettuce was crisp, and he had added just enough olive oil to make it perfect. It was a good salad. He did not understand why it would make anyone upset. "Human, stop! Do not move!" Jake turned around and found himself facing a wall of aliens. Professor Rex Talley was at the front, his 6 arms waving wildly in the air. Behind him were at least 20 students of various species, all of them looking at Jake with expressions of pure horror. And behind them, Jake could hear the heavy footsteps of station security approaching. "Hey, is something wrong?" Jake asked. "Wrong? Wrong?" The professor's voice was high and strange. "You are dying, human. How can you stand there and ask if something is wrong?" Jake looked down at himself. He felt fine. His legs were working. His heart was beating. His salad was delicious. "I feel okay," he said slowly. "Impossible." The professor pointed at the container in Jake's hands. "You ate the crimson leaf fruit. I watched you put it in your mouth. Multiple times." Jake looked at his salad. He looked at the small red chunks of tomato mixed in with the lettuce. He looked back at the professor. "You mean the tomatoes?" "I do not know this word." "The red fruit. The deadly red fruit from your home world." Security arrived. 4 large officers from different species spread out around Jake, their weapons drawn. One of them was speaking rapidly into a communication device, calling for emergency medical teams. "Sir, please put down the container," one of the officers said. We need to get you to the medical bay immediately. For eating a salad? Jake was very confused now. A young alien with purple fur pushed through the crowd. Zinth had followed the professor all the way here, and she could not believe what she was seeing. The human had eaten enough poison to kill 100 Melvery, and he was standing there arguing about it. Please, Zinth said, her voice shaking. You have to get help. The poison is going to kill you. You only have minutes left. Jake saw the fear in her 3 wide eyes. He saw the same fear on every alien face around him. These people genuinely believed he was about to die. Okay, he said gently. I think there has been a big misunderstanding here. But I will go to the medical bay if it makes everyone feel better. The trip to the medical bay took only 3 minutes, but it felt much longer. Jake walked in the center of a crowd of aliens, all of them watching him as if they expected him to fall down dead at any moment. Professor Rex Talley kept muttering about impossible biological reactions, and Zinth kept asking if Jake could feel his arms going numb down. Jake could feel his arms just fine. He was more worried about his salad getting warm. The medical bay was bright and clean, with beds and scanning equipment designed for dozens of different species. The doctors on duty were a Corvani and a Trellian, and both of them looked extremely worried when they saw the crowd coming through the door. What is the emergency? The Corvani doctor asked. This human has consumed a lethal dose of crimson leaf toxin, Professor Rex Talley announced. He should be dead already. We need to understand why he is not. The doctors exchanged a look. The Trellian stepped forward with a scanning device and ran it over Jake's body. His vital signs are completely normal, she said, her voice confused. Heart rate is stable. Breathing is normal. Brain activity is healthy. Scan for the toxin. The professor demanded. The Trellian adjusted her device and scanned again. Her 4 eyes blinked in rapid sequence. The toxin is present. It is in his stomach, in his blood, in his tissues. It is everywhere in his body. Then why is he not dead? I do not know. Jake set down his salad container and raised his hands. Can I say something? Everyone turned to look at him. The thing I was eating is called a tomato. Humans eat them every day. They are not poison to us. They are food. Silence filled the medical bay. Professor Rex Talley's mouth opened and closed several times. That is not possible, he finally said. The crimson leaf fruit kills all carbon-based life forms. This is scientific fact. I guess it does not kill humans. But why? How? At that moment, the doors opened again. A woman walked in, also wearing a station uniform. She had blonde hair tied back in a simple style and a calm expression on her face. Jake smiled when he saw her. Katie! Finally, someone who can help explain. Katie Moore was a botanist. She worked in the station greenhouse, growing plants from dozens of different worlds. She was also one of Jake's closest friends on the station. I got a message saying you were dying from plant poisoning, Katie said. I came as fast as I could. But you look fine to me. I am fine. I was eating a tomato, and everyone lost their minds. Katie looked at the crowd of frightened aliens. She looked at the scanner showing toxins in Jake's blood. She looked at Professor Rex Talley, who seemed to be having some kind of mental breakdown. Oh, she said, understanding washing over her face. Oh, I see what happened here. Please, the professor begged. Please explain how this human is still alive. Katie took a deep breath. What you call the crimson leaf plant, we call the tomato plant. And yes, you are right that it is toxic to most species in the galaxy. But humans are not most species. Our bodies process those compounds differently. To us, tomatoes are not just safe. They are delicious, but the amount of toxin in his system would kill any of you in seconds, yes. But Jake could eat 10 more tomatoes and feel nothing but full. Zinth stepped forward, her voice small and uncertain. How is this possible? How did humans become resistant to such a deadly poison? Katie smiled at the young student. We evolved on the same planet as the tomato. Over millions of years, our bodies adapted. The chemicals that kill you are actually beneficial to us. They help our immune systems and keep us healthy. Professor Rex Talley sat down heavily on a nearby medical bed. His gray skin had not returned to its normal color, and his black eyes looked lost. This changes everything I thought I knew about human biology. The doors opened one more time, and Commander Drawl walked in. He was a massive Thornian, with thick armor plating covering most of his body. He was the overseer of the entire station, and he looked very unhappy. Someone needs to explain why half my station is in panic mode because of a salad. Jake raised his hand. I think I can help with that. Commander Drawl stood in the center of the medical bay with his massive arms crossed over his armored chest. His yellow eyes moved from Jake to Katie to Professor Rex Talley, and then to the crowd of aliens still gathered near the door. He was not happy about the disruption to his station, but he was also very curious about what he had just heard. Let me understand this correctly, the commander said in his deep, rumbling voice. Humans eat poison for breakfast? Not poison to us, Katie explained patiently. Tomatoes are completely safe for humans. Our bodies process the chemicals differently than other species, and this is common knowledge on your world. Everyone on Earth eats tomatoes. We put them in everything. Sauces, soups, sandwiches, salads. We could not imagine cooking without them. Professor Rex Talley had recovered enough to stand up again, but his 6 arms were still shaking slightly. He pulled out a new data tablet and began making notes. This requires a complete revision of my research, he muttered. The crimson leaf plant has been classified as universally lethal for over 300 years. No one thought to test it on humans. To be fair, Jake said, we did not know anyone else in the galaxy existed until about 200 years ago. We were just eating our food and minding our own business. Zinth was still staring at Jake with all 3 of her wide eyes. She could not stop looking at him. This strange creature who had swallowed enough poison to kill her entire family and was now making jokes about it. Are there other Earth foods that are dangerous to us? She asked. Katie and Jake looked at each other. Something passed between them, some kind of human communication that Zinth did not understand. Then they both started to laugh. Oh, where do we even start? Katie said. She pulled out her own data tablet and connected it to the medical bay's display screen. Within moments, she had accessed Earth's agricultural database and was pulling up images and chemical analyses. Let me show you some of the most common human foods, Katie said. And you can tell me if any of them would be dangerous to your species. The first image appeared on the screen. It was a small white bulb with papery skin and a strong smell. This is garlic. Humans use it to flavor almost everything we cook. Professor Rex Talley scanned the chemical composition and turned pale again. This contains allicin. Allicin causes blood cell destruction in most carbon-based species. Even the smell of this compound can cause respiratory distress in Corvani. Humans eat it raw sometimes, Jake added helpfully. Right off the plant. The professor made a choking sound. Katie changed the image. Now they saw a round vegetable with brown skin and white flesh inside. This is an onion, also very common in human cooking. Sulfur compounds, the Trellian doctor said, reading her scanner. Highly toxic to Trellian nervous systems. Even small amounts would cause paralysis. We put these in everything too, Katie said. Soups, stews, fried foods, raw salads. The next image showed small red and green objects with shiny skin. These are peppers. They come in many varieties. Commander Drawl leaned forward to look at the chemical analysis. Capsaicin, he read slowly. This is a chemical weapon. My people use a similar compound in our security sprays. Humans eat it on purpose, Jake said. Actually, some humans compete to see who can eat the hottest peppers. The ones with the most capsaicin. Why? Zinth asked, her voice horrified. Because it is fun. The room fell silent again. Every alien present was trying to process this information, and none of them were succeeding. Katie continued through her presentation. She showed them coffee, which contained enough caffeine to stop a mulberry heart. She showed them chocolate, which was toxic to at least 15 known species. She showed them alcohol, a literal poison that humans consumed for recreation. She showed them citrus fruits, mint, cinnamon, and black pepper. Each one was deadly to at least some species in the room. Each one was a normal part of human daily life. This is insane, Professor Rex Tolley said when Katie finished. How does your species survive? You eat nothing but poison. We evolved with these foods, Katie said. Our bodies adapted over millions of years. What kills you makes us stronger. Literally, Jake added. A lot of these compounds boost our immune systems and help us fight disease. Commander Drawl had been quiet for a long time, thinking deeply. Now he spoke, and his voice was serious. This raises a significant concern for station safety. If human foods are toxic to other species, we cannot allow them to be stored in common areas. We cannot allow them to be prepared in shared kitchens. With respect, Commander, Katie said, that would essentially mean banning all human food from the station. Humans cannot eat most of the food designed for other species, either. Our digestion is too different. Then what do you suggest? Better labeling. Separate storage areas. Education for all species of what is safe for them and what is not. Humans have been living alongside other species for 200 years now. We have worked out these problems before. Jake raised his hand. Also, I would like to point out that no human has ever tried to poison anyone with a tomato. We just want to eat our food in peace. We are not trying to hurt anyone. Zinth looked at the human with new eyes. He was not a monster. He was not a dangerous predator. He was just a person from a very strange world, trying to live his life and eat his lunch. I believe you, she said quietly. Jake smiled at her. Thank you. That means a lot. Professor Rex Tolley had filled 17 pages of notes on his tablet. His hands had stopped shaking, and his scientific curiosity had replaced his fear. I must study this further, he announced. Human biology is far more complex than we understood. This could change everything we know about chemical tolerance and evolutionary adaptation. I would be happy to help with your research, Katie offered. The station greenhouse has samples of most common Earth plants. I can provide whatever you need. And I can cook things for you to analyze, Jake said. Just do not eat anything without checking with me first. The commander made his decision. We will establish new protocols for human food storage and preparation. But I will not ban humans from bringing their native foods to the station. That would be unfair and impractical. He looked directly at Jake. However, I would ask that you do not eat your salads in public areas until we have had time to educate the other species. I do not want another panic like today. Jake nodded. Fair enough. I will eat in my quarters for now. Good. The commander turned to leave, then stopped at the door. And human? Try not to cause any more heart attacks with your lunch. No promises, Jake said with a grin. 3 days after the salad incident, Jake Collins had become the most famous human on the Galactic Exchange Station. Word had spread quickly through the corridors and living quarters. The story grew with each telling. By the end of the first day, people were saying that a human had eaten enough poison to kill a starship crew and had walked away asking for more. Jake found it all a bit embarrassing. But Katie thought it was hilarious. You are a celebrity now, she told him over breakfast in his quarters. Everyone wants to know more about the poison-eating human. I just wanted to eat my salad, Jake said, shaking his head. Well, now you have a chance to teach them something. Professor Rex Talley has been talking about you in all his classes. His students are fascinated by human biology. Jake thought about this while he chewed his toast. The toast had butter on it, which Katie had told him contained compounds that were mildly toxic to at least 3 species on the station. He had stopped thinking about which of his foods could kill aliens. The list was too long. Maybe I should do something official, he said. Some kind of demonstration. Show people what human food actually looks like and how we prepare it. Katie's eyes lit up. That is a wonderful idea. I could help you explain the biology. We could set up in the observation area near the greenhouse. And so, 2 days later, Jake found himself standing behind a portable cooking station in one of the largest open spaces on the station. Katie stood beside him with a display screen showing chemical analyses. And in front of them, arranged in a wide half circle, were over 200 aliens from at least 30 different species. Professor Rex Talley was in the front row with his data tablet ready. Synth sat beside him, her purple fur freshly groomed and her 3 eyes bright with curiosity. Commander Drawl stood at the back with his arms crossed. Watching everything carefully, Jake looked out at the sea of strange faces. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some had no faces at all, just sensory organs arranged in patterns he did not understand. All of them were looking at him with a mixture of fear and fascination. Thank you all for coming, Jake said, his voice amplified by a small device attached to his collar. I know the past few days have been strange for everyone. I want to help you understand human food and why it is not as scary as it seems. He gestured to the ingredients laid out on his cooking station. There were tomatoes, onions, garlic, peppers, olive oil, dried pasta, and various herbs and spices. Today, I am going to make a simple human dish called pasta with tomato sauce. It is one of the most common meals on Earth. Billions of humans eat some version of this every week. A nervous murmur went through the crowd. They could see the tomatoes. They knew what those red fruits could do. Jake picked up an onion and held it up for everyone to see. This is an onion. According to Katie's research, the sulfur compounds in this vegetable could paralyze a trillion and cause severe digestive damage to at least 12 other species. Present today? He set down the onion and picked up a bulb of garlic. This is garlic. The allicin in this could cause blood cell destruction in Corvani and respiratory failure in several other species. He picked up a small red pepper. This is a chili pepper. It contains capsaicin, which is used as a chemical weapon by some of your civilizations. Humans put it in their food to make it more interesting. The crowd was very quiet now. Jake could see some of them leaning back, as if the vegetables might attack them. I want you to watch me prepare and eat this meal, Jake continued. Katie will explain what is happening in my body as I do. By the end, I hope you will understand that humans are not trying to hurt anyone. We are just different. He lit the cooking surface and added olive oil to a pan. The oil began to heat and a gentle smell filled the air. First, I'm going to chop the onion. Jake cut the onion in half, then began slicing it into thin pieces. Almost immediately, his eyes started to water. The sulfur compounds are being released into the air, Katie explained, pointing to her display. In a human, this causes mild irritation to the eyes. It is uncomfortable but harmless. In a trillion, even this small amount in the air could cause serious problems. Jake wiped his eyes and continued chopping. When the onion was ready, he added it to the hot oil. A sizzling sound filled the space, and the smell grew stronger. Several aliens in the crowd made distressed noises. A Corvani near the back actually left the room. The cooking process changes some of the compounds, Katie said. Heat breaks down the sulfur molecules and makes them less volatile. But they are still present in the food. Jake added the garlic next, then the chopped tomatoes. The red juice spread across the pan, mixing with the oil and onions. The tomato contains the compound you call the crimson leaf toxin, Katie said. Cooking does not remove it? If anything, concentrating the tomatoes into a sauce makes the dose even higher. Jake stirred the mixture calmly. He added salt, pepper, and dried herbs. In another pot, he boiled water and added the pasta. This is just a normal Tuesday dinner for a human, he said. Nothing special. Nothing fancy. Just food. Zinth raised her hand. May I ask a question? Of course. You said earlier that humans seek out dangerous foods because they are interesting. What did you mean by that? Jake smiled. Good question. Humans have a strange relationship with pain and danger. We actually enjoy mild discomfort when it comes to food. The burn from chili peppers, the sharpness of raw onion, the bitterness of coffee. These sensations make eating more enjoyable for us. That makes no sense, someone called from the crowd. I know. We are a weird species. The pasta was ready. Jake drained the water and added the noodles to the sauce. He stirred everything together, then transferred a large portion to a plate. Steam rose from the food, carrying the combined smells of every ingredient he had used. He picked up a fork, loaded it with pasta and sauce, and held it up for everyone to see. This single bite contains enough tomato toxin to kill most of you. It contains garlic compounds that could destroy Corvani blood cells. It contains pepper oils that could burn mulberry skin from the inside. And it contains sulfur compounds that could paralyze a trillion. He put the fork in his mouth and chewed slowly. Every alien in the room held their breath. Jake swallowed. Nothing happened. He took another bite. And another. He ate the entire plate of pasta while 200 aliens watched in stunned silence. That was delicious, he said when he finished. The tomatoes were really fresh. Professor Rex Tolley stood up, his tablet forgotten in his hands. I have studied biology for 140 years, he said. I thought I understood how life worked. I was wrong. The crowd began to talk among themselves. The fear was still there, but it was mixed with something else now. Curiosity, wonder, a strange kind of respect. Zinth approached the cooking station slowly. Could I see the tomato? She asked. I promised not to touch it. Jake picked up one of the remaining tomatoes and held it out for her to examine. Zinth leaned in close, her 3 eyes studying every detail of the small red fruit. It is beautiful, she said. I never thought something deadly could be so beautiful. A lot of things on Earth are like that, Jake said. Beautiful and dangerous at the same time. I think that is why humans turned out the way we did. We learned to live with danger instead of running from it. Several other aliens began to gather around, asking questions about the ingredients and the cooking process. Someone started recording on their personal device. Someone else asked if Jake could teach cooking classes. In the back of the room, Commander Drawl uncrossed his arms. He was still not smiling, but his expression had softened slightly. Humans continued to surprise him. 1 week after Jake's cooking demonstration, the Galactic Exchange Station had changed in ways no one had expected. The fear that had followed the salad incident was gone, replaced by something much more interesting. Every species on the station was suddenly fascinated by humans. Professor Rex Talley had completely rewritten his course on deadly flora. His new lectures focused not on the plants themselves, but on the incredible biological diversity that allowed different species to survive different environments. Humans were now his favorite example of evolutionary adaptation. Consider the human, he told his class one morning. They evolved on a world filled with toxic plants, dangerous predators, extreme weather, and unstable geological activity. Instead of dying, they adapted. They learned to eat the poison. They learned to tame the predators. They learned to build shelters against the storms and earthquakes. Humans did not run from danger. They embraced it. Zinth sat in the front row, taking careful notes. She had become one of the professor's best students since the incident, driven by a burning curiosity about human biology. She had even started spending time with Jake and Katie, learning about Earth and its strange, deadly ecosystem. "I have a question," Zinth said, raising her hand. "If humans can survive so many things that kill other species, does that make them the most resilient beings in the galaxy?" The professor considered this carefully. Resilient is an interesting word. Humans are not the strongest species. They are not the fastest. They do not have natural armor or weapons. But they have something else. They have adaptability. They can survive almost anywhere, eat almost anything, and recover from almost any injury. In that sense, yes, humans may be the most resilient species we have ever encountered. After class, Zinth walked to the observation area where Jake was setting up for another cooking lesson. Word had spread about his demonstrations, and now aliens from across the station came to watch him prepare human food. They never ate any of it, of course, but they loved to watch and ask questions. Today, Jake was teaching a group of young Drellians about something called pizza. Katie was beside him, explaining the chemistry of cheese fermentation and why the mold used in some human cheeses would cause instant death in most species. "The key to good pizza is the dough," Jake was saying. "You have to let it rise for at least an hour. The yeast releases gases that make the bread soft and fluffy." "Yeast is a living organism," one of the Drellians said. "You eat living organisms?" "We eat lots of living organisms. Yeast, bacteria in yogurt, the cultures in cheese. Our digestive systems are full of bacteria that help us process food. We could not survive without them." The Drellians looked horrified and fascinated in equal measure. Zinth smiled and found a seat near the back. She liked watching Jake work. He was patient and kind, always willing to explain things multiple times until everyone understood. He never made anyone feel stupid for not knowing about human biology. Katie noticed the Zinth and waved her over. "I have news," Katie said quietly. Professor Rex Tolley submitted Zinth's research paper to the Galactic Science Network this morning. "What research paper?" "The one she wrote about human food consumption patterns." "It is very good." She analyzed everything from Jake's cooking demonstrations and compared it to our agricultural data. The professor thinks it could become an important academic reference. Zinth's fur stood up in surprise. She had not known the professor was going to submit her paper. She was just a second-year student. Her work was not supposed to matter yet. "Are you serious?" "Very serious. The paper is already getting attention from researchers on other stations. Everyone wants to understand how humans can eat what we eat." Jake finished his pizza demonstration and brought a slice over to where Katie and Zinth were standing. He took a big bite and chewed happily. "What are you two talking about?" "Zinth is about to become famous," Katie said. "More famous than the poison-eating human? Much more famous. She is going to be a real scientist." Zinth felt her 3 eyes grow wet. On her home world, Mulvery were not encouraged to pursue science. They were supposed to be quiet and careful and afraid of everything dangerous. Coming to the Galactic Exchange Station had been the bravest thing she had ever done. And now, because of a human and his salad, her entire life was changing. "Thank you," she said to Jake. "If you had not walked past that lecture hall, none of this would have happened." Jake shrugged his shoulders. "I was just eating lunch. You did all the hard work." Commander Drawl appeared at the edge of the crowd. He had been watching Jake's demonstrations from a distance for several days now, always staying in the back, never saying anything. Today, He walked forward until he was standing directly in front of the cooking station. "Human," he said in his deep voice. "Commander," Jake replied, "I have been observing your activities this past week. I have read the reports about human biology. I have watched your demonstrations, and I have come to a conclusion." The crowd fell silent. Everyone wanted to hear what the station commander would say. "Humans are strange," Commander Drawl said. "You eat poison. You seek out pain. You walk into danger with smiles on your faces. You make no sense to any other species in the galaxy." Jake nodded slowly. "That sounds about right. But you have also done something remarkable this week. You took a moment of fear and confusion and turned it into an opportunity for education. You helped hundreds of beings on this station understand something new about the universe. You did not get angry when we panicked. You did not demand special treatment. You simply explained and demonstrated and taught." The commander paused. "That is worthy of respect." He extended one of his massive, armored hands toward Jake. "On behalf of the Galactic Exchange Station, I thank you for your patience and your wisdom." Jake reached out and shook the commander's hand. It was an awkward gesture between two species with very different bodies, but it worked. "Thank you, Commander. That means a lot." The commander nodded once, then turned and walked away. The crowd burst into quiet conversation, amazed at what they had just witnessed. Professor Rex Tolley approached Jake with his data tablet. "I have one more request," the professor said. "For my research, what do you need?" The professor reached into his robe and pulled out a small container. Inside was a single cherry tomato, bright red and perfectly ripe. "I would like to keep this," the professor said, "as a reminder that the galaxy is full of wonders I do not understand. A reminder that fear is often just ignorance in disguise. A reminder that humans, for all their strangeness, have much to teach us." Jake smiled and pushed the container back toward the professor. "Keep it. But I have a better idea." He picked up another tomato from his cooking supplies and held it out. "Why not take two? One for science and one for your office. Something to look at when you need to remember that the universe is bigger than any of us." The professor took both tomatoes carefully, holding them as if they were precious jewels. "Thank you, human. I will treasure these." As the crowd slowly dispersed, Jake and Katie gathered their supplies. Zinth helped them clean up, chatting excitedly about her research paper and her plans for future studies. "What do you want to do next?" Katie asked Jake. "You could probably teach cooking classes full-time now if you wanted." Jake thought about it for a moment. "I think I want to keep working in the kitchen. I like cooking for people. I like making food that tastes good. All this teaching stuff is nice, but it is not really me." "And the fame?" "The fame is weird. I am just a guy who eats salad." Katie laughed and put her arm around his shoulder. "You are a guy who changed how an entire station thinks about humans. That is not nothing. Maybe. But right now, I am a guy who is hungry." Jake grinned at his friend. "Want to get dinner?" "I was thinking pasta." Katie shook her head, still laughing. "Only if I get to explain to everyone nearby what is in the sauce." "Deal." They walked together toward the human section of the station, where the food was deadly and the company was warm. Behind them, Zinth watched with all three of her eyes, grateful for the strange chain of events that had brought a human, a salad, and a lecture about poison together in one perfect moment. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers. But sometimes, the most dangerous things turned out to be the most wonderful. And sometimes, all it took to change everything was one human eating lunch.